When was the last time you went to play your favorite game, but there was an update for it, and lo and behold, your console didn't have enough storage space on it? To help you avoid this issue, let's take a look at the different types of memory out there for you, so you can start enjoying your games as opposed to actually worrying about how much storage you have left. Hey, I'm Sam with Busy Dad Gaming. I help busy dads with all things Xbox so they can relax and go back to their families recharged. I'm sure you can relate to this, where your partner and your kids finally go down to sleep and you finally have some game time to yourself. You go and log in, you go and look at your favorite game, and come to find out it has an update. And because your console doesn't have enough storage for that particular update, that means it now falls on you to go clear up some of that space. So you spend 10-ish minutes going through and trying to figure out what you can delete, and then you go and you look at the update for that particular game and come to find out it's like a 10 gig update. The game finally gets downloaded, you finally get in there, play, and then you look at the clock and you find out that you only have half an hour left to play because you wasted the rest of the time managing your storage and actually downloading the game. Now let's make sure to help you avoid this particular scenario, because it's one that we've all run into, and let's make sure to keep you in the game as opposed to just sitting there spending all your time managing your storage. Now before we dive into what kind of storage is going to make the most sense for you, let's look at the basics here and what kind of storage options are actually available to you. So first up, we have a hard disk drive, and they look very similar to this, and it's a little bit on the chunkier side compared to some other storage options. But a hard disk drive actually has physical plates in there with a reader arm to get the data off of the drives. Now when it comes to a hard disk drive, they are the lowest cost options for the most storage. So when you're thinking in terms of actual speeds, think of like an Xbox One. These had actual physical drives in them. Same thing with the One X. So when you're looking at loading times, it is going to load much slower compared to some of the other competitors that we're going to cover here in a moment. Next up, we have a solid state drive, or SSD. Now solid state drives, unlike an HDD, do not have any physical or mechanical parts that use as flash memory. Now when it comes to an SSD, there's a couple different parts that play into the overall price. So the first one is, what is the actual speed of the drive? And then what is the actual storage capacity of the drive? These two different things will play a huge part in how much the drive will actually run you. Now when you're looking at an SSD, there's two different kinds of interfaces when it comes to a series console. One is a USB interface, very similar to this. This is a Samsung T7. And then you have a Seagate expansion drive, and this is using just a plug-in, which is technically an NVMe M.2 interface. So between the two different interfaces is going to potentially impact how much the price of the drive is going to run you. Now that we know what kind of drives are available, let's take a look at different options that may be the best fit for you. So first up, we have a hard disk drive, and we're taking a look at a Western Digital Black 5 terabyte drive. Now again, this does have 5 terabytes of storage, and because you're going after that higher storage capacity at a lower price point, this one is going to run you about $125. Now for this particular drive, it does use a USB interface, and it does get you a transfer speed of around 140 megabytes per second. And that brings us to SSDs. Now, in this particular case, we're going to be looking at 3 different SSDs, as I mentioned. So we're going to look at a slower option, a faster option, and then we'll look at the expansion card itself. So to start, we're going to look at a Samsung T7. This comes with 2 terabytes of storage. And in this particular case, because you're having the higher storage for that SSD, it does run $310 here in the States. Again, USB interface, so it can just plug right into the Series S or X. And it does get you just over 1 gigabyte per second in transfer speeds. So that's a slower, and I say slower, SSD. It's still a very competent SSD, but when it comes to faster transfer speeds, we're going to look at a Western Digital Black 2 terabyte P50. Now this particular drive, again, 2 terabytes of storage. It does run $360 here in the States. Again, USB interface, so it's easily plug and play, but it does get you just under 2 gigabytes per second on that transfer speed. So it's almost as fast as the internal storage and the expansion card Seagate produces. And last but not least, we have the Seagate expansion card. Now, they do come in different storage sizes, so 512, 1 terabyte, and 2 terabyte. I do have the 1 terabyte version, but to keep everything equal, we're looking at the 2 terabyte versions across all these different SSDs, just for a one-to-one comparison. Now, the 2 terabyte drive for the expansion card does run you $400, so it is more expensive than any of the options that we've discussed so far. Now, again, it does end up being an NVMe M.2 expansion, so it has direct plug and play and can utilize that velocity architecture within the Xbox. In this case, it does have 2.5 or 2.4 gigabytes per second on that overall speed. So it's going to be faster than the things that we've talked before, but there are other drives on the market that are faster, but that do not plug directly into that velocity architecture. So it can play games externally as long as they're not a Series S or X game, but it will require the expansion card if you want to play Series S or X games and it not be on the internal drive. Sam, that's great, but which one should I actually get is probably what you're asking right now. And the real answer is it depends. So it really depends on what kind of games you're going to play, and are you looking to store these games over a period of time? So for example, if you want just the most amount of storage humanly possible, a physical disk drive is going to be your best option because you will get the most amount of storage out of it. However, if you're not looking at that and you're looking more at just transfer speeds and loading times, then an SSD is probably going to be your best option. Now, as I mentioned, if you want specific Series S or X games to be able to play off an expandable drive, you're going to have to go to the Seagate expansion drive. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's just the way it is right now. But if you want just fast loading times on older games or games that are cross-gen, then an SSD is going to make more sense for you, especially if you're rocking a 1X where you don't want to sit there for a minute waiting for your game to load. So again, if you're looking at just pure amounts of storage so you don't have to download things again, go with a physical disk drive. If you want faster loading times or just faster access to the data to be able to transfer between drives, then you're going to look at an SSD. And then if you want to play Series S or X specific games, then you're going to have to go with an expandable Seagate drive because that's all you got. Now, coming at this from a dad's perspective, as you can see, I did go with multiple options for my particular situation. So when it came to just overall storage, I just went with a physical disk drive just so I didn't have to re-download games again. I also have a Samsung T7, which when I had a 1X was super useful because then I didn't have long loading times. I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But now that I have a Series S and X, the T7 isn't used as much, but it is still used, especially when I want to play a cross-gen game and I don't want that game on the internal drive or the expandable drive. And then I have the expansion card just because I don't always want something on the internal drive. I want to be able to hot swap it between the Series S and X, and that does give me the opportunity to do that and still take advantage of the velocity architecture. So it really does come down to your particular use case, but for all intents and purposes, if you're looking at just pure amounts of storage, go with a physical disk drive. That's going to be your best bet at the lowest cost. If you're wanting to have something that is more fast and can keep up with the internal drive of the Xbox Series S or X, then you're going to want to go with an SSD that has decent speeds. Again, you're going to pay more for it, but that's just the way it is. And if you want a Series S or X type of experience, then expandable storage through Seagate is going to be your best option. Now in the comments below, let me know what kind of storage options you're using for your Xbox systems, and if you're still unsure what kind of games to play or what to put on those storage devices, make sure to check out my playlist on what games to play, and I'll see you over there.